Adonai, 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 El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed Lalafim, Nosei Avon v'Fesha v'Chata v'Nakeh. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech.
Hi, I'm Kate Sheehan Roach with Contemplative Journal. We are here today with Rabbi Rami Shapiro talking about contemplation and compassion. Thank you so much, Rabbi Rami, for speaking with us today. We're honored to speak with you.
My pleasure.
Great. I stumbled upon a quote by an unknown rabbi. It might have been you, might have been somebody else, who says, kindness cares for the other. In compassion, there is no other.
Yeah, if it wasn't me, I'll take credit for it anyway.
I'm giving it to you.
Yeah, I'll take it. But I think that's true. Whoever said it. You know, when I'm being kind to you, it's like I'm one step up. You know, you need some help. I'll be kind to you. I'm in a position of power, and the recipient of kindness has less power. It's the same thing when you're forgiving someone. You know, I'm here and you're in need of my forgiveness, and I bestow forgiveness upon you like I'm your superior. So kindness can have that element of hierarchy to it. But compassion is, we meet at our brokenness, and there's just a radical equality there. As a species, we need some direction. We need some principle by which to guide our everyday interactions with life. And I think compassion is that principle. So then the question is, how are we going to define compassion? And I think one way to do it is simply to take the classic golden rule idea. You know, so in the Jewish tradition, there's a famous story about a Gentile who comes to Rabbi Hillel and says, I'll convert to Judaism if you stand on one foot and tell me the entire Torah, meaning hundreds and hundreds of years of Jewish teaching. And he does it. He stands on one foot and he says, what is hateful to you, don't do to anybody else. That's the entire Torah. Everything else is commentary. Now go study that. And it's a revolutionary act in Judaism, though most Jews don't take it seriously enough. So most of us hear that and we say, oh, it's a clever way of getting him to study all the commentary. But it isn't. It's an actual redefining of Judaism as the golden rule, saying that everything Jewish must serve compassion. I think that the compassion revolution is threatening to the entire edifice of the zero-sum life that human beings have created, where we divide ourselves into camps. Compassion breaks all that down. There's two basic ways of looking at reality, zero-sum and non-zero-sum. Zero-sum means that pie is fixed, and if you want more, everyone else gets less. And that's the way we normally function, and certainly that's the way most of our religions function. Winners and losers, the saved and the damned, the chosen and the not chosen, the true believer and the infidel. All of those divisions are zero-sum. And God, there's not enough, without defining God, but just using it however you want to understand it, there's not enough of God's love to go around. God can only love the special group, the people who know the magic name, the people who use the magic name, the people who never use the magic name. You know, in certain branches of Christianity, you have to say Jesus, or God doesn't hear the prayer. And in Judaism, you cannot say God's name. So, you know, but it's all a game. It's just silliness to me. But the idea is you have to know the magic trick to get God to love you. That's zero-sum. Non-zero-sum is the world is infinite. That when you step into the divine reality, and you're really always in it, but when you're aware of the divine reality, you're aware that it's for everyone, with everyone, as everyone. And the competition breaks down, and the branding is done with, and everything that makes religion so hurtful is ended. So compassion is going to change everything, or it'll change nothing, and we'll just blow ourselves to smithereens. I think that we are in the early 2nd century of the second axial age. And, you know, an axial age, let me just say it again, is a a time of spiritual transformation when we move from one level of consciousness to another. And the level we're moving from is that competitive consciousness where there's not enough of God to go around, to a more embracive, compassionate system of living, where we realize that all beings are our neighbors and we love them all. So that, I think, started. We can actually see when that starts. We can name it. 1893, at the first Parliament of the World Religions in Chicago, where for the first time in human history, all representatives from all the world's religions came together to share their wisdom. I mean, religions have come together before, but often to just kill their adherents. I mean, it's just war. But here they come to share their wisdom. And that, I think, was a trigger moment to sort of begin to push us in that direction. So that's where it starts. I think there are 3 revelations of the second axial age. That's the first. The second, in no specific order, but the second is in the late 60s, 1960s, where we see that iconic image of the Earth floating in outer space. And we realize it's one biosphere. And all the divisions, all the countries, all, you know, the rampant nationalism and the accompanying divisions according to religion and race and ethnicity and all of that is just an imagined thing. That it's one planet with one humanity, and we've got to live, you know, as brothers and sisters in this singular reality. And then the third revelation of the second axial age is the return of the divine feminine. And again, it's not that she ever disappeared, but more and more people are having their experience of the divine transformed through the mother. So people like Carl Jung and Bede Griffiths and Andrew Harvey, I'm just people who are popping into my head, who have said, look, that our experience of the divine now is going to become more rich because it's going to, we've gone that patriarchal route only, and now the mother's coming back, and there'll be an ultimate integration of masculine and feminine energies on a cosmic scale, but also on an individual scale. But the return of the Divine Mother is not a return of a Pollyanna-ish figure. It's Kali. It's the mother that destroys all the BS that we have built around ourselves. A mother whose work, at least in the beginning of the axial age, who knows if that changes, but the divine energy that's going to destroy and strip away everything that's keeping us from being our best selves, if you like. And so it's a time of challenge. It's a time of struggle, but for a greater good.
One of my favorite stories, Rabbi Rami, is of you speaking to thousands of people at a fundraiser following the tsunami.
This was right after the tsunami that devastated Sri Lanka, and all these thousands and thousands and thousands of people were killed and even more displaced. And the Country Music Association of America and the Gospel Music Association, along with some others, I don't remember all the people involved, here in Nashville put on this impromptu concert to raise funds. And I mean, it's Nashville, so you have this great concert hall and this big jumbotron televisions, and we're watching the news reports of what's going on over there in between the various musical acts and clergy who are coming and trying to get us motivated. And the whole idea is fundraising, and the money is just pouring from these people into the coffers to go help the stricken in Sri Lanka. And I was invited to speak, and I was totally intimidated. I don't know what to say. It was primarily a Christian audience, 99% Christian audience, and a certain kind of Christian, I think. Mostly they were the evangelical fundamentalist Christians. The people we're watching on the jumbotron are a different color, a different ethnicity, a different nationality, and a different religion from the people in the audience. And in other settings, because of the religious difference, I mean, they're Muslims, the people in the audience were, well, those people are not Christians, and fundamentally they're going to go to hell, because that's the way God set it up, and that's zero-sum religion. But in this context, none of that made any difference. None of that actually made any sense. And none of that came up, because people weren't coming at this from their heads, you know. They were coming at it from their hearts. And when we see, you know, compassion means shared, suffering, passion. So when you see the suffering of this other person, your heart breaks. And when your heart breaks, your wallet opens. And that's what was happening. We were communing I mean, it's a little bit too strong a term because it was video, but we were responding, emoting, or whatever the word is, to the suffering and the pain that these people were going through. And on that deep, deep human level, theology made no difference, religion made no difference. We gave, we helped. And that to me was what I got out of it. I mean, whatever I said to them is one thing, but what I learned from that, or had reinforced from that, was it's the brokenness where we connect. And when you deal with people who have experienced true brokenness, they don't care anymore what your religion is. They only care about helping one another move on. But we're not getting rid of Christianity, we're not getting rid of Judaism and Islam and Buddhism and Hinduism. We're taking the wisdom of these traditions and seeing that they do weave together, and the cloth that emerges is a prayer shawl that enwraps the entire planet and doesn't exclude anybody. Whereas in their original form, religion is all about exclusivity. Who's in, who's out. It matters to the religious. When you look in the Christian tradition, because there it's such a powerful motif where you have Jesus hanging on the cross, totally broken. And then you have the iconic images of his heart open and the light flooding out from it, embracing the world. That's what happens when you're broken, if you're really broken. When you're broken as a part of your spiritual awakening, you're just filled with the suffering, not only your own, but the suffering of the world, and your heart opens and only love comes out. And religions don't get that, but the icons of that love, a heart-loving, light-filled icon of Jesus is saying that. We need more of that, and that's what I saw at that concert.
If I may quote you, Rabbi Rami, you have said that real holiness is effortless, yet we have practices to cultivate compassion, or is it that we're accessing that compassion?
If real holiness is effortless, then you don't. There's no work here. It's what the Chinese call wei wu wei, non-coercive action. What Krishnamurti calls choiceless awareness. When I'm really aware of who you are as a manifestation of the divine, and truly aware of myself as the same, there's no work. It's just what the natural interchange between the two of us would be compassionate. It's when I don't know who I am or I don't know who you are that the problem comes in. And then we have work. And then the work sets up conflict. I have to be somebody, let's just make it personal. So I need to become compassionate. Well, that assumes I'm not already, right? So now I'm going to work on myself. But right away, now I'm bifurcated. Who's the me that's going to work on myself? There is no work. The idea is to stop the work, is to stop the self-beating up and all those things, and simply be who you really are. So in Christian language, it's apophatic. It's a stripping away of everything I think I am. Just letting it go and letting it go and letting it go until there's just what's left, which is the divine. And that's not perfect in the sense of having no shadow side. It's simply perfect in the sense of being whole. So absolutely having a shadow side, having a broken side. When Jesus says, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect, if you imagine perfection as somehow not having a dark side or not being broken, then you've fallen into a dualistic trap. There's whole and there's broken. There's perfect and there's imperfect. But what Jesus is talking about is a perfection that embraces whole and broken. And you have to, and that's really who we are. That's who you are, that's who I am. That I am partly broken and partly not, but the perfection, the true wholeness, holds both sides. And once I recognize that, I don't have to fight anymore. And then I am surrendered. I don't like saying I surrender, because that's egoic, but I am surrendered. And that process of being surrendered, that's not me, that's God.
We often speak of compassion as sharing in the pain of another, yet in my experience, it's my own pain that allows me to be more compassionate.
I don't want to romanticize suffering, but for me, suffering is the grace of God. I mean, that's what, once I had a teacher who, I was spouting off about some theological thing, and he says, what your problem is? You've not suffered enough. And I thought, what does he know? I've suffered, but I hadn't. suffering is the way we're broken open. And it's part of the journey. It's not punishment. It's not, it's not an attack. It's not because God is angry. Suffering is just built into the nature of life. But to the extent to which we experience it fully is the extent to which we're cracked open. And that's, so it's not just feeling the suffering of another. The way I know another suffering is because I'm also suffering. I want, maybe it's the wrong way to put it, but your suffering becomes my suffering. My suffering becomes your suffering. But what we're talking about is the ending of these hierarchies, the ending of the divisions, putting all of that aside and simply realizing that it's the entire thing is the play of God, what the Hindus call lila. And all I need to do is play. And sometimes the play is fun and sometimes the play is painful, but it's all the play of the divine. And the more I can remember that, the more I can simply play the game and not feel I have to control it. The opening line of the Tao Te Ching says, the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. And that's the most liberating thing I can imagine. Now I don't know. And everything I name, the Hindus have that wonderful phrase, neti neti. It's not that, it's not that. If you can name it, if you can make a religion around it, if you can make it into a theology or an idea or put it in a book, it's not exactly it. It's a menu, and it may be pointing. The Zen people talk about fingers pointing to the moon, and humans focus on the finger and never notice the moon. So they're all saying the same thing. It's not the finger, it's the moon. And I love looking at all the ideas, but ultimately I know that they're not it. And I love my ideas, and I don't want to stop them from popping into my head, but I do remind myself, okay, but neti neti, it's not that, it's not that. Because the divine can't be limited to any system. So, just to go back to where we started the whole way through, this whole second axial age is a realization of deep humility, or it comes with this deep humility that arises with the realization that you don't know. And also with this deep freedom that comes with the fact that you don't have to know.